Hey everyone, happy Thursday. We're doing an hour later than we normally do today due to UK daylight savings time, but I hope you're all having a great day. We'll get started in just a minute. All right, let's jump in. As always, I'm Georgia. I'm the head of customer here at Candu, and today we're going to walk a little bit of information about what Candu is, what it does, and how you can use it. Let's do a quick screen share, jump right in. Like I said, so today we're going to talk about Candu, some use cases, what our clients are doing, and then we'll actually jump into a content workshop. So if you are someone who has a Candu login and is interested in following along with our content building, we're going to do a quick product walkthrough. We'll take a look at how you use Candu in action, and then we'll walk through actually doing a cool workaround that has recently become available with one of our new features, which is creating an FAQ section. As always, we'll leave time for wrap and Q&A at the end, but please, I get pinged if you send any Q&A questions, so please feel free to pass those along at any point. So what is Candu? We get this question a lot. It's sort of a new technology. So Candu is a UI builder that you can use our drag and drop editor in our side, and then you can plug in the things that you build into an existing application. So this is different than some of the things you've probably traditionally seen in that it's not a full website builder. You wouldn't build every single page with Candu. The idea is that you probably already have maybe a SaaS or an e-commerce or consumer product. You have an engineering team that is building your core functionality, and there are probably some parts of the UI that the engineering team doesn't want to spend all of their time on, things like customer onboarding or announcement bars that maybe would be better suited in the hands of a designer. And so without CSS or any coding at all, really, you can use Candu to build those kinds of UI components, pass them directly into your application with your styles. It should look exactly like your engineering team built it, but then you can update it regularly. The other really cool thing about Candu is that you can do user segmentation. So you can pass us your data, and then using Candu's framework, you can actually just build different user segments for the same space in your app. And some big examples of this might be that if you were doing a home dashboard page or feature announcements, there's probably different things that your long-standing admins are going to want to know as opposed to a brand new user. So on the one hand, if you're dealing with brand new users, you probably want to do some kind of onboarding flow, give them an onboarding checklist, something to help them really understand what the simple key features of your app are that will get them on board. An admin does not need to see this. They're probably more interested in admin-specific features or new things that you've released or ways that they can get deeper into the product. And those kinds of things are not useful for new users. They'll overwhelm them. They won't be helpful. And so with Candu, you can take a single page and you can say, for our new users, I want to show this checklist. For our admins, I want to show these feature releases. Another option might be, we do a lot of announcement bars based on what features people are not using. So if they haven't done some key actions, we'll do an announcement bar reminding them of that. If they already have done those key actions, they don't need to see that, and they can have something else. So there's tons of different ways that you can leverage user segmentation. It's all good stuff to try and really optimize your UI to help your users have a better time with your product. Cool, let's see how people are actually using this right now. So one of my favorite examples is this dashboard refresh idea. So some of our customers have had welcome dashboards or resource homes or places where maybe customers might go to get information and they've stayed really static because they were worked into one sprint cycle, an engineering team built them, and then that was the end. So we've seen some iterations of this that were like a simple page that just showed product release notes and was updated quarterly. Not surprisingly, didn't get a ton of engagement. Users weren't super interested in it. Or other things we've seen are resource homes that people build that get stale really quickly. They have links to blog posts that get old, or they have old videos of bad past UI, and it's just really hard to get them updated because the engineering team is focused on updating the product itself and doing the things that actually differentiate you in the market. And that's great, and it's really important, but also making sure your users know about it is really important. And I think a lot of the time we default to email marketing or email product marketing because that's where we can get this information, but getting it in front of your users when they're actively thinking about your product, they're already in the product and they're interested in it, is really important. So these dashboard resources or resource home refreshes have made a big difference to a lot of our clients in being able to hand over the reins to, whether it's product or product marketing, a team that is able to keep this content up to date all the time. Another cool thing that's close to our heart is this idea of UI experimentation. I think we all know about the importance of A/B testing and doing A/B testing, and there's tons of tools for that. But there's also times, especially for smaller companies or SaaS businesses, where you're not getting such a high volume of people coming through, where you have hypotheses you want to test that are a little bit, that aren't just like blue button, red button kind of. And so an example in our case was we had this onboarding checklist that you'll see when we get into the product. It was performing pretty well. People were going through it, but we had a bunch of self-serve users who were getting caught on something that was listed in the step, but wasn't a step itself. It was whitelisting their application in Candu. So Candu won't publish content unless you've given us permission explicitly to publish it on a page. A lot of people were missing that. And so they were installing it, going through all the steps and getting really confused why nothing was showing up. And so instead, if we needed to work with our engineering team, we'd probably need to do some validation, some user testing, some collection to make sure that this is worth their time to add another step to our checklist. Instead, I, as our head of customer, just went in and added the step to the checklist to see what happened, and we saw support tickets go way down. So all of that to say, for things that you think will probably help, will move the needle, but don't necessarily want to spend all the time collecting the data to make sure that it's worth the engineering team's time, Candu is a great way to. And then finally, I think this is a really cool example of how you can use segmentation to do customization. We've had some clients do really great things with, especially in the post-pandemic, post-work from home world, a lot of clients and prospects are on very different time zones. And as a customer success manager, it's really hard to talk to everybody. This is what we call the N+1 user problem. So a lot of the time in user onboarding or account management, you have your champion that you spend a lot of time with, and you really rely on that champion to do a lot of the evangelizing and training for anyone who doesn't actively reach out to you. And so for some of our customers who have big accounts that are spread out now across the US or even internationally, it's hard to get on the phone with everybody to do custom training. And so one of the nice things we can do with Candu is to create account specific dashboards. So if your champion has created an internal wiki on best practices, or if you've worked with them on that, or if you've done a sales criteria or customer success criteria that you want to make sure that everyone can see, or we've even had CSMs who have done webinars that are company specific that they want to share with the company, knowing who to email those to, you can send it to the emails of people who have logins, but new people who log in might not see it. Being able to share all of that on a dashboard for your really premium enterprise customers means that you can kind of guarantee that anyone who gets into the app will have the information at their fingertips. So that's another really cool usage of segmentation and of Candu. Cool. Really quick pull up to see if there are any questions. It looks like we're good. I think a lot of this seems kind of abstract in slides because it's hard to tell where all of this lives. And right now it's Candu branded. So we'll jump into the actual product and take a look at how it works. Cool. Okay. So actually I want to take you into a third-party SaaS app. So we'll just do HubSpot, one of my favorites, somewhere I spend a lot of my time. And so if I worked at HubSpot, if I had access to install Candu and I was on the settings page and wanted to do something like an announcement to remind people of what to do, I just want to give you an example of sort of how Candu works before we jump into the application. So in the settings page, I'm going to open the Candu Chrome extension. If you're following along at home, I highly recommend you download it. You can just Google Candu Chrome extension. It'll be the first thing that pops up. Here you'll see if you already have a login and have created content, all of the content will show up here. If you haven't created content yet, that's also totally fine. You can still play around with it. We have this whole template library that you can dig into to get a sense of what you can do. So here, maybe we want to take a look at all of the different potential templates that we have here. Let's say for HubSpot, maybe what they want to do is announce that they're launching a newsletter. And so with Candu, you can just select one of the pieces of content. And the first thing we'll do, this is just for me, this is in my personal instance. If you went into this page, you won't see anything. It's just a preview, but we can go around the page and see all of the available divs where we could drop content in. And you'll notice when we drop content here, what it'll do is actually push the other content down the page as if your engineering team had installed it themselves. And then we can hide the borders to get a sense of what this would actually look like. So as you can see, we now have a dismissible announcement bar that reminds people that maybe they should subscribe to the newsletter. I don't know if this is a perfect setting for it, but that's just an example of how you can leverage Candu. And one of the things we'll talk about today is right now this is built in the default Candu styles, but our goal is always to not look like an iframe that just got pasted into your site. It's to look exactly like your site. And so one of the things we'll talk about today is how you can set up the style guide to make sure that all of your content looks exactly like your team built it and so that it fits directly into your application. Cool. And finally, if I had HubSpot access, the way to install Candu to actually put it into your app for everyone to see, not just in this preview function, is to go embed this content. So all you need to do is add a script tag, kind of like adding Google Tag Manager or any really simple addition. And then you just hit once that script tag is in, you can just hit embed this content, and then you're off to the races with having content on your page. So it really is a pretty seamless experience to get it into your app. Let's jump into Candu itself. When you log into Candu, probably the first thing you'll see is this home dashboard page. To give you a sense, all of this, everything that's on this page from here down effectively and this announcement bar are all built with Candu elements. All of this is stuff that we build internally and update regularly. So take a look. You can see me, you can reach out to me. This, again, as I was saying, this announcement bar is segmented for different groups of users. So if you haven't downloaded the Chrome extension, you might get something about that. If, like in my case, I haven't used an iframe block yet, so it's giving me this notification. It may give you a custom welcome, all kinds of things that we play around with this announcement. And then down below, you'll see our actual getting started checklist. So if you're interested in getting going without support, you can walk yourself through the checklist. It'll actually change based on what you've completed. So you may be seeing one about creating content for the first time. I've already done that in this account. So we've changed out the checklist to encourage installation. These are all things that you too can do. And if you're interested, we can always share these templates. Like I said before, we have the option to do user segmentation. I've jumped into that in a few of the other webinars that you can take a look at. Today, we'll actually be focusing primarily on content. So in the content section, when you dive in, first you'll see the list of content that you've previously created. The other thing that you can do, which I actually always recommend as a getting started mechanism, is to go into the template library. These are the exact same templates we were just looking at in preview, but this just gives you a chance to actually go in and edit. I think one of the sources of confusion we have sometimes is that people think that this is Candu content, but the whole idea with the editor is that you can change things around and make it look like your own. So the template library is really meant to be a place for inspiration and to save you some time. You can just start with one of these templates, change out images, colors, text to make it look like something of your own, and that way you don't need to think about sort of that blank slate here in the headlights initial feeling of looking at something totally empty and trying to come up with something. So as you can see, we do announcement bars, cards, checklists. You can build a whole dashboard, page sections, videos. We also have a bunch of iframe blocks. So if you already use something like Typeform or HubSpot, you can iframe that in and get feedback directly from your app. All of these things are available, and I definitely recommend taking a look at the template library if you're not quite sure where to start. Today, we're actually going to talk about a new type of content that we haven't been able to build before. So this will be, let's say, our FAQ section, and we're going to put that. Once you have more than a couple of pieces of content, I really recommend building these content sections. They basically act as folders. Content can get unwieldy pretty quickly. As anyone who's ever used Google Drive will know, it gets hard to find things really fast if you're not putting them in folders. So we'll say this is live demo content. And now we're in the editor. We're starting with a blank slate. You could start with a template, but the editor will be the same no matter what. So on the left, you're going to have the palette, which will be all of the options that are available for you for things that you can drag and drop onto the screen. Just drag it over. When you're on the editor itself, it works sort of like any other kind of editor. You can make edits right in line, we'll say FAQs. And then on the right, you have what we call the toolbox. So the toolbox changes depending on what element you're in. As you can see here, we can choose to change this to a H2. We can center align it. We can change the text color, the background color, and add margin and padding. A lot of our users get very intimidated by margin and padding because they are a CSS function, but I recommend you can just play around with it in Candu. You can always undo things. You can always delete things. The design best practice I've heard from our designers to do things in intervals of 4, but I wouldn't stress out about it. You can just move the number up and down until it looks the way you want it. To create this actual FAQ section, what I basically want is to take a container. I want to take a checklist, but I want to remove the checks and the progress bar and all the things that make it look like a checklist and just make it an expandable element. So as you can see, if I pull a checklist over here, I can write step 1. You'll see there's a title, but once I put in step 1, I can actually do a drop down, which allows me to add more content. So like a video or text or descriptions. So in a lot of ways, this is actually a perfect piece of content for an FAQ section, except that it's a checklist. And so what I'm actually going to do is go into our style guide to create a new variant that will let me do exactly what I wanted. So in the style guide section, I actually recommend if you're just getting started with Candu to come here first. You can upload all of your fonts, make them the right sizes, make them the right colors. If you use a custom font, you can upload it here and leverage it throughout. You can also set your brand colors here, and those will flow through to things like links and buttons and badges, which you can also update individually. Buttons are great great. You can do hover effects, focus effects, all of the things that I think are traditionally in a brand book. I used to work at a much bigger company that had a brand book that every time I created a PowerPoint, I would go back to, have to remember hex colors, pull it all in again. I was bad at templating there, but here you can literally just set up the style guide once. It is your universal style guide. You don't need to keep thinking about it. And so it just saves you a lot of time if you set it up on the front. And then today we're actually going to take a look at checklists. So we have added the ability to fully customize the checklist in the style guide. So all of the things that you think you might want to update, the title, the header, the text, you can change around the checkboxes, how they look in their default and check state. You can remove the progress bar. All of these are now options. And so today we're actually going to create, let's just call an expandable. With the style guide, we give you a bunch of default styles that may help you to get started, but with things like cards, buttons, checklists, all of it, you can add as many of your own variants as you want to make sure you can do all the things you want to do in Candu. What we want here is, I'm actually going to go in just because I'm paranoid and make all of these things just totally neutral so no one will see them. I don't want the checkboxes, but the main thing that I actually need to do is just change the checkbox style to 0, 0. I think I'll probably do 8 to make the boxes a little smaller. I don't think it needs to be quite that far, so we'll do 0. And now suddenly we don't have a checkbox and it just looks like a normal expandable state. The other two things that I want to remove are the title and the progress bar. There won't be progress through an FAQ section. So I will go into the group title, set that font size to be 0 pixels, and the progress bar I will again set to be 0. And now you see we have our normal checklist, which has a title and a progress bar and these checkboxes, and we have this expandable section that is modeled off of the same thing, but does something completely different. All I need to do now is hit Save Style. And if I go back into content, now I'll see my new expandable section here in under containers in the palette. So I just drag it over onto the screen, and similar to my last checkbox, you'll see I have the option to type content. So we could start with I can add as many questions as I want. And in each one, I can also add additional content. So maybe for what is Candu, I want to add 2 columns and add text description on the left. And then maybe on the right, I can either add a video that can link to our YouTube channel with a quick overview explanation, or I can add an image. With images, you can always upload things through links from anywhere on the internet. You can also upload images from your computer by just dragging them from your desktop. The other cool thing, similar to the style guide, is once you've uploaded an image, it's there forever. You have it available to you. So you don't need to keep thinking about how to add more images or where it is, or if you still have it stored on your desktop. Once it's in here, you can grab it anytime. That image was a little larger than I was expecting. And sometimes this happens. I think sometimes people see something like this and they panic. They think they've done a bad job. It's totally fine. Right now for this image, it's just auto-sized to what I downloaded it as, which is very large. And so maybe I want to change it to be really small, 100 pixels, and maybe I want to make it center aligned within its layout or even right aligned. I can also go back into the image. 100 pixels looks a little small to me. We can make it 200. Again, I think pixels are something where, because it's a number, people feel like there's some kind of perfect number. Really what you're looking for with Candu is what looks good, what will look good on your site, what looks good in the editor. So play around with those pixel sizes. The other thing you can potentially do is change between pixels and percentages. The difference basically is that as the screen size grows and shrinks, how do you want your image to respond? With pixels, it will always be the same size. This will be 200 pixels if I'm on a monitor or if I'm on half of my laptop screen. But if I do percentages, it will always be, let's say 20% of the layout that it's in. So it can get a lot bigger on a big screen or a lot smaller on a small screen. So today we've created a nice FAQ section. I would recommend adding things like GIFs to show people around your site, videos, text descriptions, but this is a nice way to give people a little bit of an easier visual into finding the questions that they want. You could also, if you wanted to, you could add the title back in the style guide, or if you want, you can always, we want this a little higher, there we go. You can always add a heading, dragged it wrong, onto the page, and then create different sections within your content. So you could do this one, and then let's actually just duplicate it down below. And you could do a section that's like installation FAQs, getting started FAQs. So you can really start thinking about how to break down your content to make it more digestible for your users. Excellent. Okay, well, we have about 5 minutes left. I want to double check if we have any questions. Actually got through all of my content for today, so I will wrap up a little early today, but I look forward to chatting with all of you more. Please, as always, reach out. We have our intercom chat, or we actually have links to getting in touch with us on the dashboard. So if you're interested in talking to any of us, take a look. We also do these webinars weekly. I think next week we're actually doing a content section with an external user. So it should be really interesting and I highly recommend. But if you're ever interested in any of this content, it's all on our YouTube channel. You can actually find it directly from the dashboard. So take a look and please try it all out and let us know if you have any questions. Thanks so much.